Hi, friends. Logan Clements here with the Better Events podcast. And this week we have a special guest on the podcast, Sean Walker, who some of you might remember from our 2024 Better Events conference. He was one of our attendees. He is an all around audio engineer, and we are talking with him all about mics, speakers, sound, what you need to know, and why audio will matter at your next event. So without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of the Better Events Podcast. We are thrilled to be with you and thrilled to be with our guest today. We are talking about all things audio, mics, speakers, sound, all the good stuff. We are going to talk about how to set your event up for success. So we will get into this episode shortly. But first, Logan is going to introduce our guest for today.
Yes, our guest this week is Sean Walker, who's a freelance audio engineer turned sound company CEO. After years of freelancing for almost every company in the Puget Sound, Sean started his own company because he believes that event planners and event producers deserve better audio at their events, which we couldn't agree with more. So, Sean, lovely bio. What would you like to add to that for our listeners?
I mean, that pretty much sums it up.
That's true. And also, I feel like Sean, from my experience about you, you seem very humble, but Sean does cool things, everybody. So you're going to learn way more about that as we continue this conversation. And so we're excited for you to get to know him better. And Sean, we like to do a little bit about why we invite our guests on the podcast. And so Sean, we were introduced to Sean. How long has it been now? Like, it's been over a year, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy because the industry, sometimes there's so many people in it, but then you just come across people in random ways. And I think that's our experience with you, Sean. We got connected. And then since we were connected, you have been such a supporter of the podcast, friend of the podcast, supporter, and then also Better Events conference attendee. And you've just like completely showed up and helped build our community. And so we're really grateful to have you here in this podcast setting so that we can learn more about all of your expertise. So just once again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been super fun to like hang out and get to know you guys and get to know like what everybody's going through on the other side of the event world rather than just what we're going through, because it's chaos on our side and it's like, oh man, they're going through the same thing. It's chaos on their side too.
Yeah,
literally.
We just have different chaos corners. And listeners, you might recognize Sean's voice because you heard it in our episode last week. We are partnering with him and the Audio Engineers Northwest to give you a production tip, mainly from the audio side, but Sean, we have learned, is a breath of knowledge every month for the foreseeable future, which I think is just going to be a nice extra bonus tip that you're going to get from some episodes. So if you missed that, please go back to episode 207 last week and make sure you catch his tip. It was about budget, which is just so important these days and every day.
They're not getting any bigger, man.
No, we got to do more with less. And you've got some good ones in there. So Sean, we've teased it a bit and we did your bio, but can you tell us, our listeners, a little bit more about yourself, your event journey, and how you got into this crazy world of events and event production?
Man, I used to do corporate sales. I used to do like mortgages and then business to business sales years ago. And when the mortgage market tanked in 2000 and whatever that was, 8, they came and took the Benz and the Chaparral speedboat in both houses. And I was just left holding nothing. I had nothing, had to start over again. And at the time I was singing for rock bands here in town and, that nobody had ever heard of, but I pretty much thought I was in Motley Crue at the time. And, I was just the guy that could like do it in the band, the guy that could like figure out how to do the recordings and make the demos. And pretty soon that led to an internship at a recording studio. And then when I met my wife and we started a family, I was like, man, it's not going to happen doing it in a recording studio here in Seattle, like Nashville or LA maybe, but not here in Seattle. So I started doing front of house gigs, at like clubs, bars and whatever. And trying to just make some extra cash. And pretty soon I was like, man, I think I might like this better than doing just like sitting in the studio all day. And then it kind of just snowballed from there. Like, what I came to find is the bar's pretty low. Don't tell anybody, but the bar is pretty low. So all I had to do was really just like give a hoot, or I mean, give a shit, but I don't know if you say that in your podcast, but all you had to do is like give a hoot. And then you were like, hey, man, can you come back and do this again? Because everybody else was just like mailing it in. You know what I mean? So pretty soon I had to like buy some gear. I had a client that was like, hey, man, if I had another rig, I could go do twice as many shows. I was like, whoa, what does that pay? You know, so then I went and bought a rig, a small, by today's standards, a small crappy rig, but that's what you can afford when you make like $200 a day at the time, right? Like, and that just kept snowballing, like just giving a hoot and doing the best I could, which at that time, like, 20 years ago, 15 years ago was not as good. You learn as you go on, but that was it. It just kept snowballing and snowballing. And today we're totally blessed to be doing some pretty freaking awesome events for Fortune 100 companies and little things too. It's not just that, but it's just been cool to like giving a hoot has worked. You know what I mean? Don't be a jerk. Nobody wants to hang out with a jerk for 12 hours a day or 18 hours a day, and do the best you can for everybody every time and be honest. And it's worked wonders for us.
I love it. Honestly, so true advice. And what I'm also hearing from what you said is that we need to have like a Better Events podcast karaoke night, and you're gonna bring out your rock skills. I would love to see that.
Do not do that to yourself.
All right, we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, I'm in. Obviously, I'm in, but don't do that to yourself. I'll embarrass everybody in there, dude,
Hey,
and
we're
myself
karaoke
included.
fans over here, so it
So,
might take a lot. Oh my gosh, hilarious. Okay, so Sean, our next question is actually probably the biggest question of this whole episode. All right, so
uh-oh.
why is audio such a crucial part of an event?
Because if it's not right, you're distracted. Like all you're thinking about is what's wrong with the audio, what's going on. And it doesn't have to be audio; it can be the video too, right? I mean, I obviously I specialize in audio, but same applies for video and lighting. And if it's wrong, it's wrong, right? Like the video doesn't play, the mic doesn't work when the CEO comes out to talk about it, or it's cutting in and out, and like everybody's fired. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what level everybody is that's listening. I assume someplace between my first rodeo and who cares what this guy's talking about, because I've done a zillion trillion-dollar events, right? But and everybody in between. But like if your VIP talent comes out on stage and the mic doesn't work, everybody in the room is fired. Like they're not like, you guys did a great job and we can't wait to have you back next year, right? So it's a balance of like, battling with the budget because everybody's got a budget, and also making sure that you're CYAing, you know what I mean? So that it always works. And when it's great, you don't notice it and you're just immersed and engaged in the event, and you've totally forgotten about the technology, and you're just into whatever they're talking about, and it's not even a second thought about the audio or the video, or it's just like watching a movie where you're just going, dude, I'm watching this story and I'm into it.
Yeah, I think you have a great point there. I mean, it's somewhat a thankless task. I feel like there's a lot of things I break down in for other event pros is there's the things we notice as event pros if something goes wrong. And then there's the things attendees notice. And unfortunately with audio, almost everything you do, Sean, is very noticeable from attendees if there's a problem. But to
Totally.
your point, if it goes seamlessly, no one is going to be like, wow, those mics were great. But if there was feedback, there was a weird sound, I say I know enough tech to be dangerous. I'm nowhere near as technical as you are, but I have become that person at events. Like even if it's just like an echoey, like there's clearly no one running the mixing board. They just turned mics on and went. Just the like extra room noise you get in the mic bothers me. And I know it's not
100%.
everybody, but yeah, I think it's just a very unsung hero of a show at times, like you said, because it's something so obvious that unfortunately contracts can be lost because a mic didn't work at the right time.
Totally.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you said that because from like we were talking about this a little bit more offline, but I've done less production now. Like as during virtual events, all of us were getting into production to a certain extent. But now I'm working with you all, the experts, and I'm doing more of the planning and stuff like that. And if I make a mistake, like maybe even something bad, the catering numbers are a little bit off. It is still okay in most cases, and we'll do better next year. But the when you said that, Sean, that was like a mind moment for me because I was like, you're totally right. Like you all have like yes, like if you mess something up, that is like there's no really forgiveness for that. And that makes me actually sad for you in the production world because the other bits of us, we can usually recover from even big mistakes. And so I'm almost like, that's not fair. That's not fair for you. That doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing, but wow, the stakes are high.
The stakes are super high, and there's like there's no net with the high wire that you're on, right? And we've got like last year we picked up a new client just exactly because of that situation, because the other vendor that was there, CEO came out on stage, mic didn't work. Backup mic came out, backup didn't work. CEO had to make his speech without anything to the audience of like 500 people just standing on stage talking because the other vendor couldn't figure out how to make it all work. And I just thought to myself, like, what happened during tech checks and run throughs and Q to Q? And like, what happened with all that that suddenly it doesn't work now? Like, come on, guys, you know? But it's a 6-figure a year client for us because somebody else just didn't do their diligence to figure it out, you know? And like, it seems like it's not that hard, but like I said, the bar is pretty low, dude. You know what I mean? It's pretty low. So, you know, it really is like nobody's keeping their job if it's all fucked up. Nobody, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's I feel like again we like to start broad usually with our listeners here, and we've dived in a bit, but to kind of pull back, if someone was new to planning events, what are some of the key components of a basic sound audio setup that you would hope they understand?
I would say the basics are that like speakers are like flashlights. They only work and cover where you point them. And you can't point them through a flower decoration. You can't point them through the video wall or the screen. It's not a movie theater. They're not blow through screens. So you got to put them where people are. You know what I mean? The easiest way is to like, as you're laying out your seating and your, you know, your screens and stuff, if you can like kind of cut your room up based on where you can put these speakers, and they don't have to be big. If it's a small room or small event, they can just be a little speaker on a stick. But like one speaker basically can cover like, you know, 6 rows or 8 rows wide and maybe up to like 30 feet deep. You know what I mean? And you just got to kind of like layer them in like that so that you can point them where they go and make sure you have enough so that there's coverage for everybody and nobody's in a dark spot, right? Does that make sense? Is that too tech?
No, I think that makes sense. And there's so many events that I've been a part of. I have to admit that there's like 2 speakers in like the front of the room, but none in the back. And it wasn't until we worked with like an actual, professional AV partner, and they were like, you need speakers in the back too. There's people sitting back here, and my mind was blown. I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, but I didn't know until somebody said it. It's interesting to hear you say that as well.
Totally. Because they only project so far, right? Like
Mhm.
a speaker on a stick is good. I mean, really good for like 25 feet. You can stretch it to maybe 50 feet from the speaker before it's like, I'm going to age myself here, but before it's like max L guy loud in the front and you're just like blowing people back in their chairs and the hair's blowing back and the people in the back are going, what? What? I can't hear. You know what I mean? And then you need another set of those, right? Often that doesn't work aesthetically. So that's why we're always asking if we can fly speakers to get them up and out of everybody's way. But with the cost of rigging these days, we totally understand why we can't do it. Because I don't know how many people listening are able to rig their rigs, but they're proud of the prices for those things.
Yeah, they're exorbitant. And I think just real quick for listeners, if you don't know, speakers on sticks, we're saying speakers on a tripod on a stand. So it's taking up space on the floor. And then when you're saying flying and rigging, that means these speakers are literally hung from rigging from the ceiling. And that is where those AV costs can really skyrocket because a lot of in-house venues only allow you to use their in-house rigging. And the cost is just what the cost is. And I will link to a production podcast I listened to that had a very interesting breakdown of just why they think those are so expensive and why they're mad about it. But that's it.
I'm in. I want to see that too.
Yeah, I'll send it to you, Sean. It was very fascinating to listen to.
I'm in.
What's the difference between a good sound at an event, Sean? You said the bar was low, but like passable good sound and great sound at an event.
I would say that like good sound means that there aren't any problems and you can pretty much hear everything just fine. You know, it's all fine and you're not like, oh no, you know what I mean? But kind of like I said earlier, like great sound will move you and the other attendees emotionally based on the content, right? It allows you to forget the technology and just live in the moment and enjoy the content and be immersed in it, you know. And if you're doing a accounting conference or something, maybe you're not as concerned about it or whatever. But like, if you're doing a sales kickoff where the energy is high and everybody has had their coffee this morning, you know what I mean? Or an all hands where literally everybody is listening, it's super important. They'll have hella dynamic videos. They'll have stingers and walk-ons and walk-offs and having that all clear, trouble free, impactful, sounding like it should, right? Like we all know what it should sound like. We just maybe not all know how to get there. But if you've ever been to a great movie in a movie theater, you're like, it sounds great, right? Like you're not like, what is wrong with the thing or why is this off? Your event should sound like that, right? Your event should sound and look like you're in a movie, maybe with the lights on or some cool lights in the background, but it shouldn't be like, why is it a little weird? Or why does he sound like he's talking through a tin can? Or, you know what I mean? No, nobody thinks that's okay. And nobody's like, oh yeah, I'm glad we saved $200 and now the Fortune 100 CEO sounds like he's talking through a tin or her talking through a tin can. You know what I mean?
That's actually a really good transition into our next question. And I have a story for this too, which I'm sure you're going to appreciate.
I love the stories.
I know, I was doing an event and it was almost completely volunteer led. It's for a nonprofit, so like they're doing the best that they can. But it was a volunteer like sound technician that they got set up. They had a connection to someone who actually did have experience doing sound. I don't know if it was their profession or what it was, but they were bringing them in. They canceled the day before the event for whatever reason. They couldn't make it. So they found a backup. That person canceled too, so they couldn't make it. So I get a
Oh,
text at like 10
no,
p.m.
dude.
the night before the event. Yep, and they're like, "Do you know anybody?" And I was like they're gonna charge you $2,000 at this point because like you need them tomorrow, and they should. Like this is why you don't necessarily go for volunteers for this type of stuff. Anyway, they ended up finding someone. It worked out okay. But our question for you, kind of regarding that, is when do you suggest event planners actually hire like a tech to run their audio versus just turning the mics on and letting it be what it is?
When it matters. We have all in our career done events where you're like, oh man, close enough is close enough. As long as it all kind of goes, it all kind of goes. And not everybody can be as intense about it as I have become, right? I've got the luxury of the three of us, right? We've all had the luxury of doing events at scale at this point, right? Where like I said before, like if something goes wrong, everybody's fired, right? But that's not always the case. If you're talking about a small, all volunteer led event, like it's going to be what it's going to be. The margin for error is wide, and thanks everybody for kind of doing the best you could and getting through it. And we had the fundraiser and we made a few grand, and it was all thanks so much. We love you, right? So you can't afford to pay techs for everything, and I get it. You know what I mean? You do the best you can, and I'm happy. On that note, I'm happy to be a resource. If people just want to freaking reach out and be like, "Hey, I got this thing that's for free. I can't afford anybody, but like, can I have 5 minutes on the phone to ask the questions I need to ask?" Like, yeah, dude, call me up and ask the questions you got. No problem at all. But when you already know as the planner or producer, or like this matters, dude. This I don't have the margin of error, and it pretty much needs to be right, or I'm going to start getting some heat for it. That's the time to call somebody that knows what they're doing. And there's different levels of people that will charge different prices. And I'm also happy to share those companies in town or around the country that are like, they'll do just fine-ish and they're way more affordable. Or like, if it cannot fail and you have presidents, CEOs, popes, what dignitaries, whatever, like these are the people to call around the world that will sort that out for you. You know what I mean? There's a sliding scale, like a good, better, best kind of a thing, like everything else, where it's not always just like not everybody's buying Rolls Royces. There's a lot of Hondas and Toyotas sold around the world. So that's okay too, you know?
Yeah, I definitely do the full breadth of events because I will confess for our Better Events conference, Mary, we're going to turn the mics on and we're just using them. But that was also, I will say, our budget and our planning for that is it is a very slim event with slim margins. And it was just, I want to afford it, but we can't. And it was fine. It was 35 people in the room. We didn't need the mics all the time. Like,
It was totally fine.
yeah,
As an attendee, even as a critical audio human, it was totally fine. It worked
yeah,
wonderful, and we all had a blast. And that's the time where you're like, you know what? We don't need it. We don't need to go there. You know?
yeah. But it's one that you aspire. But I also had another event where I got the venue turned the mics on for me. They gave me a 5-minute training on here's how to adjust the volume. And I was helping run the graphics for this client, but I ended up being the only person, tech, quote unquote, person at this table. And somebody came up to me and goes, an attendee is like, "Oh, are you the audio person?" And I very quickly went, "No, the venue did the audio. I just know how to turn it on and off." And they were fine. They were more telling me, "Oh, we think this video is only going to play out of like this side of the speakers. Therefore, we were worried you'd criticize it." And I was like, "No, it's fine. Everyone, this was one of those events where it's just fine." But I acknowledge there were moments where the MC was really yelling into the microphone and things where I'm like, I'm not technically versed enough to tell you what knobs on this big mixing board I could have probably used to try to make that better, but it was good enough, to your point. Versus I work a several millions of dollars event where they fly the audio tech in from Amsterdam. And this event doesn't matter where it is in the US. This is their person. And I will say objectively, this person was great. They did a good job. It was a clean show. Am I looking at that person saying they're the best of the best? I don't know, but we had a clean show. And that's a kind of event. It's like, you can't have room for error. So you're going to fly in the best people.
Absolutely. And ultimately, you're going to fly in who you trust, because that's really what we're talking about. If we want to break it down, to its core, its essence, all we're talking about is trust, right? I trust that if I pay this money and this person or this team is on site, everything will be fine, or everything will be to the standard that I want it to be based on the pre-production conversations we've had, right? And that's really it, because candidly, you can rent speakers anywhere in the world and microphones from anybody and anywhere in the world, and there's nothing about my inventory or anybody else's inventory that's like changing lives. It's the people that are doing it, right? Which is why I named the company such a long name, and going back, it would just be sound.com, because it'd be so much easier to type in an email address. But like, you're totally right. Just having the right people and making sure that it's good. That's it, man. Because then you're not stressed, right? Then you're like, every year when you go do that event, it's a 7-figure event, and you're like, it'll be fine. This dude's going to be here. It'll be just fine. Cool. I can go worry about video and lighting and whatever else, or the other things I got to worry about, food and beverage. I don't know what you're on in that show, but you don't have to worry about the one thing that is checked off the list, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's one is an event. I mean, any part of an event, I never would say you should promise it's going to go perfect. And so that's the main thing, is that we can't promise that every mic is going to work all the time, but we're going to promise that we've done our due diligence to set ourselves up for success, that it's going to work. Or to your point, Sean, that client you won, that like, if the primary fails, you got to have the backup working.
I will
that's
promise.
the 2 strikes, you're out.
I will promise.
Yeah.
I will promise that every mic will work every time.
I love that, Sean. I appreciate that for you. I will not, if you were working for me, I would not repeat that promise to the client, but I would say you have the right people in the right roles. Should something happen, it would be fixed in a heartbeat, and then later on learn why. But
we're in a blessed position to only hire the A team, right? Like I'm not doing the like, it's close enough, right? So I will promise that they will work, or I'll give you a refund. That's how freaking intense we prep, program, tune. Like it's mental. You guys come to a prep day and you'll be like, I'm out. I can't even deal. Like, get out of here. Like, come on, dude.
You heard it here first, everybody. Head to Audio Engineers Northwest, and you won't need a refund because they're going to do it right.
Totally. But I'm going to get that one person that's like, well, it all worked, but I think there should have been a little more 8K in the microphone when he was there, so I want a refund. Like, that's not what we're talking about, man. We're talking about full failures. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So Sean, some questions for you. We talked about sound checks a little bit before. So do you have a checklist or a routine for sound checks? Like what every event planner should insist on doing before doors open? How can we help advocate for that when we're creating our timelines, all of that stuff?
Absolutely. Our checklist is intense, so I won't bore you with those details, but I will say, like, every planner at every level should insist that all the systems, whether that's audio, video, lighting, whatever else is going to be there, are tested and functioning 100% before doors, right? There, if you can, a Q to Q or a tech checks would be wonderful. And that all the walk-ons, stingers, videos, they all play correctly and it all sounds good. Like whatever good means to you, right? Because what we're talking about, every level has a different acceptability of what good is. Not everybody needs a Rolls Royce. There's a lot of Hondas sold, and that's just freaking fine. So just before doors, ensure it all kind of works the way you think it should be working for the event or for today, and that you're getting what you paid for, right? Because you had some kind of budget, you went and bought this, and make sure that you're getting what you think you're getting. That's what I would say, because it should all be at the very baseline. It should all be just fine. And if it's not just fine, make them fix it.
And this is where the trust comes in, though, because I laugh. I must sound like I don't trust a lot of people, because when I produce or am a part of an event from the production perspective, I insist on those every day. Even if they said, someone's like, well, we checked it earlier. And it's like, great. I unfortunately wasn't present. So I would like to hear that video for myself, just to make sure. And I know your answer, Sean, but just for our listeners, if you have a multi-day show, your suggestion is not just to do the tech check at the first day and assume everything's fine, but should you be doing daily tech checks in each room if it's a multi-day program?
I mean, we do those because I don't want to get fired, right? But the event planner or producer may not need to sit through those every day, depending on their relationship with their partner or vendor or whatever you guys, however you want to call that. I would say get through the first day or the rehearsal days or whatever, make sure that's all good. And then unless something changes drastically, it should continue to work. But if you have, if you're in those situations with a new vendor and it must be correct, there's no problem with checking every morning before the show happens to go, hey, let's just run through today's videos again. Let's just do this one more time. Like, depending on the show, you can get through that in 30 or 60 minutes and figure it out. You know what I mean? And if everybody's got to come in a little early, just have coffee waiting for everybody when they get there, and nobody's going to complain too much about another 30 minutes or hour for the day to make sure it's all right. Because ultimately, nobody wants to get in trouble. Nobody wants to get yelled at. None of us are like, nope, I don't have 30 minutes to make sure I don't get yelled at today. Like, we're all in. Let's go. You know what I mean?
Something that I really appreciate too is not, I don't have a lot of knowledge about that area. I have a general understanding of I mean, I definitely understand my tech checks are important, but like a general understanding of what happens in all of those things. But it's helpful when there is, a representative from like the production team, the audio team, whoever it is, that is like, hey, I really suggest that we do this. This is important and you should be a part of it, you event planner. Like that advocacy kind of, because it's like I only know as much as I know. And it's helpful to like hear like because I feel like a lot of times I come in and I'm like hand holding these people who are providing a specialized service that I don't know something about. And so I love what you said, and I think it's like wonderful to work with a partner who has has like a level of advocacy as well. But it goes both ways. That's the thing. So as event planners or producers, Sean, I feel like there are things that we can provide to you to help you be more successful as well. So what would you say are some of those bits of information that you need to make sure that you're set up for success in advance of the event from us?
I need the PowerPoint decks more than 3 minutes before the people walk on stage. Full stop.
The audacity
Yeah,
of that
right.
request.
I know. What a jerk I am. Holy moly. I mean, I get it, dude. People are busy. Executives are doing executive stuff. I understand. But how are we supposed to check that for accuracy and functionality during show as they're walking on stage? Like, come on, dude. That's just asking for all of us to have a Hindenburg style crash. You know what I mean? Give me 30 minutes. Like, give me 30 minutes before they walk on stage to like put on some headphones and cue this up, listen to it, make sure it's good, make sure the thing actually plays, because that's not always on the tech side, right? Like maybe the PowerPoint's broken, maybe the links are broken, maybe your executive, now don't tell anybody, but maybe your executive decided they're going to embed YouTube videos and there's not fast internet at this thing because it was 20 grand from whoever's providing internet, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, who shall not be named, for this event. And you were like, I'm not paying 20 grand for freaking dial up internet. And so these YouTube videos aren't going to play. Like embed the videos from wherever, like do not stream them online. Do not stream videos because it will crash and bite you every time.
Yes. And I think from the audio perspective, I'm sure, Sean, you have that version of here's the PowerPoint 3 minutes before, but it's probably like, do you want music playing? Oh, yeah, you play music. Just play something.
Just play something. Yeah, yeah, totally. And that's great. Most of us, corporate A1s keep a pretty benign playlist available to play. Like our favorite is like string quartet covers of pop songs. And so you're like, oh man, I know this song, but there's no words. And it's like royalty free basically, right? So you're not like getting in trouble with ASCAP or BMI, right? But you got these like songs that everybody knows. It's not weird off of the thing, but it's all strings and vibey. And so it works for almost anything, you know what I mean? Whether you're at a small little thing or a big little thing, most people are like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. They're kind of bobbing along, but not really paying attention. So it's not drawing anybody's attention to it. And I'll share that playlist with you guys if you want. It's
yeah, definitely.
It's cool.
I do want for our listeners to know, though, that is a difference, I will say, between bringing on someone like Sean and the Audio Engineers Northwest and hiring an in-house provider. They will often, that is a plus, plus, plus to provide you with music, to provide you with the device to play said music. That is why, Sean, for a lot of my clients, I call it my BizFair Bops because I worked an event I called BizFair 5 years ago, and I went to YouTube, the free audio download library of royalty-free things. I spent time. I probably spent like 2 hours and picked 20 tracks.
Yeah,
Those
dude.
20 tracks have followed me. They're one of the tracks is actually, I think, part of my, no, do we play it here on the podcast? We might at the end.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the end of is one of my Biz Fair bops. But if you've been there, it's 20 songs that I just have not taken the time to revamp my library. And that is my go-to if someone doesn't pick music. We use my Biz
Dude,
Fair
that's
bops.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm trying to find where this because I'm not good at this thing. It's what do we call this thing? Uh, we just call it pop instrumentals on Spotify, and it's
I like
just
it.
like 9 hours and 16 minutes of instrumental whatevers that it's all today's hits, right? But just
Yeah. No, that's a great, and that's a huge value add and a reason that, again, I don't think you get that with just because your event has an audio tech on it. They're not necessarily going to have that at their beck and call, but it's something I've consistently seen with folks who do these bigger events and then use their skills on other events. They are prepared, which is nice. So that's another benefit. If you're someone listening to this episode going like, well, why am I bringing in someone just on the audio side? And this is something that, I think is a strong value add. Thinking about timeline, Sean, with the planning process, how early should, and we're going to say broadly AV production, but from your perspective for audio engineers, how early should you get brought into the planning process?
I love to be brought in as early as possible or as early as you feel comfortable bringing somebody in because it helps us to not only understand the scope of what you're doing rather than just getting like a bulletin punch list, but like when you're designing your layout in your room, we can have a lot of, I'm going to say input, but I don't mean telling you how it's going to be. I mean like, hey, these 2 or 3 things that probably make no difference to your layout whatsoever are huge boulders for us if we could move these around. Like, hey, if the stage could move 3 feet to the right, we can actually hang our audio rig symmetrically in this room, and then everybody has a great show. Whereas if it's where you placed it, then it kind of just going to look dumb with the speakers not even on left and right, and it's not going to be even coverage. And then we actually have to not rig to the points that are there. It's like little things like that where you're like, by and large, I don't really care if the stage is 3 feet to the right. Like that doesn't harsh my mellow at all. You know what I mean? And the same will be true for video and lighting, right? One of the funny things is that, we just do audio, but you guys all call it AV. So I was like, well, I'm not going to correct anybody. AV it is, right? But the same applies for video and lighting, where it's like, hey, if we can kind of all just work together, and if you've got one vendor that's doing all of it, or if you've got different vendors at each thing because they're all specialists at that, right? And that's something we can dive into later if you want. But we can all work together to be like, hey, man, where are you putting your stuff? Where am I putting my stuff? How are we balancing this all out together? And how do we make this all work and put this puzzle together so that it looks beautiful and also functional and saves the client a pile of money so we're not paying for extra rigging, extra power, extra whatever to go do things when we all could have just maybe shared one truss if it's flying, right? Or, hey, if we turn the room the other way, there's where all the rigging points really are that we need. Or the power's on that wall, and then we don't need to bring a bunch of extra stuff and a bunch of extra drape to cover the power coming ugly out of the other wall. Does that matter to you? And they're like, oh, no. You know what I mean? Sometimes, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Whatever you want, we will do. Yes, ma'am. Other times, hey, if we could do this, it would save you a bunch of time and money. Oh, yeah, let's do that. You know what I mean? It's a conversation. It's not we're not telling you how it is. It's just like, from our perspective, these are the challenges we're going to see and face, and here's where it's going to cost you money to fix those challenges. Can we fix those now and save you money, or are those worth dealing with? Excuse me. Are those worth dealing with? In which case, we all know it's coming down the pipe, and you can adjust accordingly, and just order 5 less bottles of champagne or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think, and it's Mary's point, right? Of Mary, you were saying like not knowing what questions to ask. I think the unfortunate piece is the experts or the specialists get brought in and we're already on site, drawings already made, stuff's already in the air, and it's a little too late to change course or find, to your point, Sean, savings. I mean, that's the big thing. I feel like a lot of listeners, their ears perk up of like, oh, I can save money.
Oh my gosh, totally.
Like, especially when things are getting more expensive. So I agree with everything you're saying. And I think the more, just ask the questions, folks. That's my big thing I've learned is like, you might feel silly. And if you want my favorite thing to preface, I'm like, just out of curiosity. Like I had an event where we smashed 2 breakout rooms together. We opened up an air wall and we made it a super breakout for this one session. And I was like, and as we're going through it, our audio guy was like, well, you should have done speaker stacks, not speakers on sticks. Like that would have had some more power. Like they couldn't afford rigging, all of this. And I was like, oh, that would have been really helpful to know. Like, I just didn't know to ask, what is an alternative speaker setup we should be doing? And so that got added to my list that I will now always ask, like, what am I
Totally.
not thinking about?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And um ultimately, if your partner, vendor, whatever you call it, is good, right? Because we're not the only good ones. Let's be honest, right? We're not. There's plenty of good options out there. If they're good, they are absolutely looking on how to save you money, right? Because if you're trying to gouge everybody every time, you're not getting the call back. You know what I mean? So we're always trying to figure out how to save you money, how to do a better job with less. But there are minimum standards of like it, dude. It has to be this much, or the car won't drive. Like it does have to have tires and brakes and fuel, or the thing literally won't go. Right. So getting in early allows us to do that and answer those questions ahead of time. Like, hey, speakers on sticks won't work. We do need a little more horsepower to get this room, or here's some other options, or whatever. Right. But by and large, the things that we need to know are what does the schedule look like, right? Where is power? That's like one of the biggest things for AV for everybody. Like, where is power, and what does that look like? Are we stuck with Edison wall power, which is possibly the worst way to power anything, or do we have like a 50 amp Cali twist or L2130, which are twist locks in the wall? A lot of the hotels will have these like funny looking circular plugs that everybody's like, what is that? I don't know, but that's a lot more that we can use. Or do we have to order, the big power, three-phase power from stuff? And that will all be show dependent. And we will all know that. You don't have to know that. You just have to know what's available, and we can say what we need. And then you can say, okay, great. Or we can have those conversations where you're like, hey, man, at this venue, they want $5,000 to give you three-phase power. Do we really need that? Or can we just use the wall outlets and do that? And we can, sometimes the answer is, we are going to need that. Other times you can, no. For $5,000, we can. That's ludicrous. Like if it's $500, we need it. If it's $5,000, like we'll figure out how to string cables all over the venue and figure it out.
Oh, Sean, I feel like we could talk about this for a long time. This is like such a vast conversation. Uh, I think we'll have to do part two and get a little bit more like 201 level or something like that.
All right.
But this has been super, super helpful. We did want to ask, if you could kind of like summarize something into one last piece of advice for listeners, what do you wish that they knew about sound?
I wish that they knew that it is not all created equal, and that the price at the bottom of the invoice oftentimes has very little to do with how good this company is, because the prices in our industry, just like yours, are basically made up, right? We have basically just picked a number that we think people will say yes to. If we're being really candid, we're all friends here, right? We just, if we're being candid. So just because they're, let's say, all the same price does not mean that they're all the same quality. There's not a product that you're buying. Like it's not all a Honda Accord or a Rolls Royce Phantom or a whatever widget, right? It's not like going to Amazon and clicking the same thing. So interview people, call people on the telephone and speak to people, because just getting emails, people can like take a long time to reply or whatever and like craft their responses. But when you talk to somebody on the phone, and you guys are really good about this, but to the people that maybe are a little less experienced, like call somebody. You'll know in 2 minutes if this person's a jerk, if they know what they're talking about, if whatever, you know what I mean? Because if they're short and grumpy on the phone before they have your money, it's not getting any better after they have your money, right? Like that's true of anything in life, but same here. If they're super helpful and knowledgeable and trying to think of creative ideas on how to solve your problems, how to save you money, how to do a better job for your event, that's the kind of person that you want on your team. And those are available all over the world. So just call people on the phone and chat with them, and then follow up to summarize in an email. Like I think both of you guys have said that bazillion times, like wrap it up in an email so it's in writing someplace, but like talk to people on the phone and catch their vibe. You know what I mean? Because ultimately you're going to be spending 12, 18, 20 hours, a day with this person for however long your event is. Nobody wants to hang out with a jerk for 20 hours a day.
It's a people business. It is really true. So Sean, we appreciate you spending your time with us. And before we let you go, anything else you want to add, and where can listeners find you?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. No, I think I've rambled enough for today. You can find me at audioengineersnw.com, and that's the easiest way to find me and get a hold of me. And like I said, I'm happy to be a resource for anybody. Happy to have phone calls or emails or carrier pigeons or whatever's good for you to like even if you're not hiring us, man, even if you just need like, hey, we got this quote, we're in Poughkeepsie, I don't know what this means. Like, what do all these line items mean? Can you please go over this and take 5 minutes and call me? Absolutely, I can. Absolutely.
Amazing. Yes, I highly encourage pick Sean's brain. He is also willing to travel. So if you are not one of our listeners in the Pacific Northwest, Sean, you have an active passport and all those good things. So
Oh yeah, totally. Our company works nationwide and I travel worldwide. Totally.
we love it. Well, thanks, Sean, for being here. And
Thanks for having me.
that brings us to the end of the episode. Mary, you have our bonus tip this week.
I do. Okay, so our bonus tip, as you know, sometimes is unrelated to our episodes, but today you could probably say this is related to anything because my bonus tip for today is, are you looking for a mentor, but maybe you haven't made that connection with somebody who has more experience than you or whatever you think of a traditional mentorship? Consider peer mentorship. I've been talking to some fellow event professionals about this lately and just the value in hearing what they are going through and helping each other kind of work through what that is. That has been some of my most useful mentorship personally that I have received lately. And so that is our bonus tip for today, to consider peer mentorship.
Nice job, Mary. I love that bonus tip. And a good time of year. I feel like we're in the summer, like halfway through the year, to start thinking about it, make it less of a wish list and actually find a peer mentor. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can send us an email at bettereventspod@gmail.com. You can always connect with Mary and I directly on LinkedIn. We love hearing from you as well. Just mention you've heard of us from the podcast. And if you want even more Better Events content, head over to our private community on Substack. We drop fresh episodes once a quarter there that are just for you, our private community. So head on over and join. And thanks for those that have already joined. As always, we want to thank you for listening, and we'll be back in your feeds again next Wednesday.